Well, I want to give you my take on a 2025 Deagel.com population predictions for the United States of America. Now, they over the last several years, they keep dropping them. They so went from, the current population I think is like 320 million in the United States. They had it forecast at 67 point something million by the year 2025. Then last year, or a couple years ago, they dropped it to 64.9 million from 67 point something million. Now they got it, I think, 61.3 million. So whatever they're seeing something bad, right? And they're not a conspiracy site or a military site. I'm going to present this to you in a nice, calm fashion. I'm going to give you pure logic, and I'm going to actually, right now I'm displaying a picture from the Great Depression. Four children for sale, inquire within. People were desperate. Now, also, I want you to remember something. When did the Great Depression really start kicking in? 1930? I know the stock market crash happened on Black Tuesday, 1929. And, it really started, and actually there was a bigger crash in the markets a couple years later. I think it was in 32, or a few years later. But it really kicked in like 30, 32, 33, and then you had the Dust Bowl and, where the growing season was. Now, I'm telling you, man, this is not, I'm going to just put things in real rational perspective. Now, where did this come on the heels of? Actually, the most prosperous time we probably ever had in the United States, the 1920s. The time of laissez-faire capitalism. A time when everything was brand new, styles were changing, there was absolute abundance. There was thought that the markets would keep going up for this reason. And you know what? This would have made complete sense to me because it was the brand new age of the Industrial Revolution. There was, Henry Ford started his automated assembly line method, standardization of parts. People were getting goods transported to them by truck and besides just railway and shipping. Travel was much easier. Roadways were vastly improved in the 1920s. It was after the greatest war to end all war. It was perceived that there would be peace forever after World War I. And the markets are going up along with the great industrial revolution. There was, liberation of everything, morals and ideas and everything in the 1920s. It was a super positive outlook decade, even more so than anything. It was such a radical change from the late 1800s and the early 1900s that it appeared that it would just go on forever. I mean, nobody would have ever expected a Great Depression to happen. If you lived in 1925 or 26, no way in hell. You would have never expected this to happen. Okay? So, I mean, is that just plain rational thinking? I'm not thinking negative, but I'm just telling you, it's like there's actually a moral message here, too. Now, am I a fearmonger? Hell no. I'm a pragmatist, okay, if you want to call that a practical person. Now, during the time of the Great Depression, people were much, much hardier and more self-reliant than they are today. Pretty much everybody knew how to grow a garden. Pretty much everybody knew how to, just capture a turtle and make turtle soup out of Mr. Turtle, right? I mean, if they had to. Today, everybody knows how to, program their iPhone or something. They're not skilled at basic necessities. I am not either. I know a few things, but I don't know enough, okay? Now, I'm going to actually tell you why this is very much can be far more an acute problem that happened from the 20s to the 30s today than ever. First off, obviously we have much more government supporting people today. And it's obvious with the debt bomb going on, 19.4 trillion plus unfunded liabilities. There's going to be a time where the dollar is going to start losing its luster for investors overseas. And when that happens, interest rates are going to creep up. And then the debt service on the existing interest in the United States is going to become unmanageable because it's going to take such a large slice of the pie of government expenditures. It's going to cause things to shut down, like food assistance, or it's going to be either they handle it by slowing down, or cutting back the government expenditures, or they handle it by allowing the dollar to inflate its way out of debt. One or the other, right? I mean, this is a new experiment, actually. When this happened in the 1930s, the U.S. dollar was still backed by gold. We weren't a debtor nation. We weren't like the number one debtor, all-time debtor nation on this earth. I know you've been hearing this crap, but Deagel.com is not really a conspiracy site like all these other people out there on YouTube land. They're a military site. Now, I just can't believe this 61 million stuff either, okay? But either way, I mean, if the population even drops, there just could be a massive exodus. But people are not, were far more, self-reliant back in the past than they are today. People were not so dependent upon technology. We have just-in-time delivery systems today in the United States. We have vastly more population in the United States plus in the world. But the more sophisticated we are, and more developed we are, the more susceptible we are to problems that interrupt our way of life, because one thing will lead to another. Now, I'm going to actually show you another chart here. This really is far more telling than probably anything I might say to you otherwise. Half of the U.S. population lives in these shaded counties. Half. And you look at the United States, but the other half of the United States pretty much lives in the open. That's the part of the United States that's going to survive the best. Now, one reason I'm thinking about getting out of Florida is because even though I'm not in a shaded area, it's probably easier to reach my area. You know what I'm saying? I'm not too cool on that, by desperate people and stuff. But so if you look at the shaded areas, you just go from the top here. You got the Boston area, you got New Haven, and you got New York, Long Island, Philadelphia, pretty much all of New Jersey. This looks like Charlotte, North Carolina, Atlanta. You got Tampa down here in Florida. You got Miami-Dade County. You got Austin and Dallas, Texas. You got Los Angeles and San Diego County in California. You have Sacramento area. You got Seattle up here. You got Minneapolis, Chicago, and Detroit. I mean, probably Akron, Ohio, whatever, Albany, New York. But pretty much half the U.S.A. lives in a small percentage of the landmass in the United States. These are the people are going to get hammered the most if we have an serious economic problem that interferes with our just-in-time delivery system and causes widespread inflation, especially in the absolute necessities such as fuel, heating fuel for cars, and also food. Going back to the way things were, people fared far better back in the 1930s than they would today. If you disagree with that, I'm going to tell you I don't know how you would disagree with that, because people were far more self-reliant way back when. The population today, yes, there's a lot more social programs, but if the government can't pay for these social programs, or say, for instance, the government can pay for them, but your dollars are worth less. In other words, this debt problem of the U.S. government of being $19.3 trillion in debt is coming to a head. And it's coming to a head. When it hits critical mass, one thing is going to lead to another. In other words, there's going to be social unrest in the cities. Now, also, I want to tell you this. When you're looking at the population that's concentrated in these shaded counties, this is also the GDP. It pretty much relates to the GDP. All the GDP is coming out of those areas. But a lot of the GDP is actually coming from a small percentage of those people that live in those areas. If there's social unrest in these small percentage of people that live in these areas that are the main part of the GDP can't get to work, or economic activities and business enterprises are interrupted by problems within the population at large in these major cities, there goes the GDP. Okay? I mean, it's real simple logic. Now, I can't believe this Deagel.com stuff either, but here's something else that's food for thought. The Message of Fatima. Now, this actually coexists and just goes along in line with even what I learned from Major Anatoly Golitsyn, the KGB major who wrote New Lies for Old and the Perestroika Deception, and that communism never disappeared from the face of this earth. Russia fell apart deliberately as a ploy for long-range strategy. Some of the people, now, the basic Catholic Church today at the top has been totally corrupted and taken over by New World Order elements. Like Pope Francis he's garbage, okay? I'm just going to tell you that. He's screwed up. Most of the faithful have been misled a long time ago. Actually, since Fatima 2 came out. What the Message of Fatima says, and actually that's one of the things the Message of Fatima says, because they never released a full third secret, which actually had to do with the church being corrupted and taken over from within. That's why they didn't release it. But they also said that there's third secret really never. And I know you're going to be controversial about this. People are well versed in this message, but let me get to the chase. Let me just backtrack from that and just tell you what Mary said. That many sins committed by mankind are very offensive to the Lord. World War I was a punishment to mankind for sins against the Lord. She predicted back then, if mankind doesn't commit sins, it doesn't stop committing sins against the Lord, that there would be a greater war. And she predicted when. There would be an unknown light in the sky. That was a borealis, aurealis, whatever you call that. It did happen. I think it was in 1938 when Hitler invaded Poland at the time, or right around that time. Then World War I. That was basically the outset of World War II. Excuse me. Now she says that Russia would be the instrument whereby God would chastise mankind for its sins. Russia would spread its errors throughout the world. Now, you might not call this communism per se, but the type of stuff that we got going on in Western nations, including Europe, the European Union, and also even with these environmental protection agencies and the Bureau of Land Management, is nothing but pure communism. This is actually a picture I'm showing here of the event that happened on October 13th, 1917, when they had the miracle of the sun. This was a time when they said there would be a miracle, and a lot of people came there not just because they're faithful, but they were saying, hey, watch these religious idiots not have a miracle and they'll be all disappointed. Well, there was a miracle. There was a miracle of the sun. I don't know, there was tens of thousands of people there. You could see this was just part of the crowd. You could see a lot of people saw this. If you want to say it's not true, to me, being a non-religious person, I'm not a Bible thumper, I have to say this is true. Okay? She warned that the ultimate thing that would happen to mankind was that Russia would be used as the instrument to chastise mankind for its sins. And Russia's specific, well, I'm not going to tell you, well, I'll tell you what it is. The Pope and all the bishops and cardinals are supposed to do a ceremony, worldwide ceremony, to consecrate Russia specifically to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, which they never done yet, and that would avert war. I don't know if you want to believe that or not. Fine. If you don't, fine. But the one that actually heard all the message and wrote it down was Sister Lucy. Now, I examined this in detail. I read some of the books by priests that are not actually going along with Pope Francis and some of the other ones that we had before, Radke and Pope Benedict, that actually state that, we're near very close times when, things are a major problem. It's going to come about. Now, the Deagel.com site is actually just making predictions not based upon war. They're just making it based upon the government can't pay everything that it can to for food subsistence to its citizens, or the dollar is going to wind up being going into hyperinflation as a way of dealing with the government debt. Deagel.com predictions are based upon no war. I don't know how they're coming up with such ridiculously low population estimates for 2025, but I think when it does happen, the vast majority of it is going to get hammered in the major cities in the United States. Now, I'm not freaking worried too much one way if I'm in Florida or not, because it's not super hot, super cold over here. It's super hot sometimes, but it's like you're dealing with the cold when there's no heat or something happens with your electricity or something, whatever. There's an interruption in utilities. It's not going to be a major problem like it's going to kill you in Florida. Whereas if you're someplace else where it's super freezing cold, that can really wipe you out pretty bad. So I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm just telling you that it's not something that these people that are on YouTube constantly freaking putting this doom and gloom shit out. I disagree with a lot of them, but when I look at it from the real pragmatic side, yeah, there's something to this stuff. But it ain't gonna matter. Like, you look up here in Montana. I mean, is there any county in Montana or Idaho or North or South Dakota or Wyoming that even has a county that's in dark colored? What about Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, upstate New York? None of them are dark colored. West Virginia, nothing, right? Look at Arkansas. Look at Nevada. I mean, up in northern Nevada, you think the Hopi Indians are going to be affected by this? Nah, not in the least. I mean, it's not going to affect everybody. It's going to affect the people. The ones that are going to get hammered the most are the ones in the dark blue areas of this country that are in high population areas. Even if you have everything correct and everything, how much food could you really store in a high populated area? But say you did. You're going to be surrounded by people that want that stuff, That's probably the one big disadvantage of Florida, because you can just, go up I-75 or I-95 and go try to, get stuff from other people. You're up in the mountains across the Appalachian corridor here from Georgia all the way up to Pennsylvania. You're probably more well protected. Probably one of the better areas to be in the east side, the East Coast side. Or maybe, northern New England might be good, but it's very cold. Honestly, the people that are probably most protected is the people, this is where the Lakota and Sioux tribes are going to come around full circle. They're going to survive probably very well. And the white man's going to get hammered. The Hopi Indians in Nevada are going to do Nevada, whatever. Nevada. They're going to do well. Arizona, excuse me. Arizona. Yeah, Arizona. They're going to do well. The Lakota in South Dakota, they're going to do well. People in Montana, Wyoming, Idaho. People in Nevada. Probably people in Oregon, mainly the state of Oregon. Anywhere, even in California, if you go inland California, they're probably all going to survive well. Arkansas, West Virginia, probably, I don't know, pretty much a lot of areas in this country are going to do pretty well. It's anywhere that's very heavily populated. Ooh. See, like I just want to tell you again, if these heavily populated areas are the GDP. Now, the GDP is not coming out evenly through that population. Like, if you go in New York, New Jersey, there's a small percentage of people that are really the real producers, even though that's a vastly, it's a very heavily populated area. There's a very small percentage of people that are real producers. But say they can't get to work, or say, for instance, their goods or whatever it is, or whatever they're doing, or whatever they're producing is being raw materials or whatever it is, are being interrupted by problems in the infrastructure, it's going to clobber the GDP. because what's happening with the general population in these highly populated areas. And when that happens, it's just going to snowball. We're far more vulnerable today than we are in the 1930s. And remember, just going to tell you that again, if you lived in the 1920s, no way in hell would you believe what can happen in the 1930s. Yeah, history, when you're looking back, hindsight is 2020. Now, I'm not saying this is a doom and gloom video, but it's a reality video. People in the 1920s realized, okay, we had the greatest war of all time, the war to end all wars, supposedly, right? We're living in the most prosperous times in the United States ever. The markets are going up, and they're not just going up because the Fed's manipulating the numbers and they got web bots trading with each other. There's real production of goods and services. The dollar is backed by gold. That's in the 1920s. The assembly line method, standardization of parts, mechanization, industrialization, parts being made by machine, more efficient methods of manufacturing and agriculture. Nobody in the world, nobody in a million years would suspect that we could have went into the Great Depression in the 1930s, in the 1920s. Maybe in 1929 some people were reading the writing on the wall, or 1928 or late 1928. But nobody in 1925 would ever believe that. So from 1925 to 1935, look what happened. I mean, this is not that implausible. Sorry. Okay? Now, I don't really worry about this, but when I put it out and people want to tell me that I'm constantly worried about it, I'm not worried about it. I just realized it's freaking legit. Actually, today, it's probably going to lead to a freaking nuclear war, for crying out loud. I don't know. To me, I want to survive it. I don't give a shit. I don't care. Fine by me. I mean, all the leftover Hillary supporters, I'll put them on a chain gang, and I'll put them out there, the chicks, put them on a chain gang, and I'll have them farm for me. I don't care, man. I mean, I'm worried about it, man. I'm not. Is that really politically incorrect to say that? Yeah, I'm a male, sexist, whatever. I don't give a shit. They need to work off their bad sins. But, anyway, I don't think there's too many of those around. They probably die before I ever got a hold of them anyway. But, yeah, YouTube, review this video. I know, it's already good. I can already see the little monetization, not monetary friendly. I can already see what they're going to do. And then I'll have to request a manual, and they'll say, I don't know what they'll do. They're getting crazy lately. They really are. But, I'm telling you something that's legit. But everybody could survive fine. And actually, I think the message of Fatima is very, very important. She's saying pray the rosary. If you don't want to believe that, fine. I'm not going to tell you what the hell to do. I'm not a Bible thumper. There's no PayPal link. Contribute to my 5013C after this video. There might be an ad or something, but I mean it's probably going to go to the $350 million lady I made a video about. She's probably pissed at anyway. So I mean, you know what I'm saying, right? The $350 million lady that runs the CEO that runs YouTube. Anyway, shit, I shouldn't mention it anymore. But but yeah, I mean, it's legit. It's legit. And why did Mary appear to these three kids in the first place? Kids are innocent. It's like they're not connected to the Catholic Church. They're not connected to the politics. They're not attorneys. They're not, writers in the major media. They're just little kids. They see something. Hey, I saw that. And it's like, even when they threatened them and they told them they were going to boil them in oil, and they told them their friends, their other two got killed and stuff. Now you confess, and they still wouldn't confess to saying that they stuck to their story that they saw and heard Mary, or well, actually the one that saw and heard her was Lucinda. The other two just saw her. That's how it worked, to tell you the truth. You can look into this story. I mean, that's why, I think something's coming up really bad, okay? All right? Does this sound like I'm all worried about it? No, okay? I mean, I'm not stupid. I mean, it's like this. If I'm riding down the highway in the fast lane, and, I'm on a motorcycle, and I saw an exhaust system drop right in the middle of the lane. you know, yeah, I might say, oh shit. And actually, I remember doing that one time. I got up on the pegs and I kind of straddled it like the motorcycle, and I kind of rode right over the freaking exhaust system. I ran right over it at like 75 miles an hour. It didn't wipe out. But, I reacted to the situation. I'm a pragmatist. Oh, pragmatist? Pragmatist. Pragmatist. You think I'm stupid? I mean, for crying out loud. I mean, if there's a problem coming up, I'm not going to be an ostrich and stick my head in a hole. Okay? I'm not freaking out about it. All right? But I know this is legit. And, everybody, like, people like say, people up in New Jersey are like that, man. And look up in New Jersey. Look up in New Jersey, New York. That's all the dark blue, man. They're the ones who are going to get hammered more than anybody. South Florida's going to get hammered. Even up here in Central Florida, I'm not in that area, but, anywhere in Florida, these people from the blue area can be going up looking for other shit in the other areas. Texas, well, Texas is going to largely, be okay because they only got a couple spots to worry about. And Southern California, but inland California, they'll survive up there in the mountains. Man, I remember being out in California, man. Inland California is way different from coastal California. And Sacramento area is going to get hammered. Seattle. I mean, actually, the place I think is going to hammer the most is the area I was born and raised in, is New York metropolitan area, man. Ooh-wee. And like I says, once they have population unrest, the few percentage of people in this real populated area that are really the main GDP drivers, they're not going to be able to do their job. It's not just that they'll be able to go to work or something, but they'll be dependent upon other things, whether it's materials, communications, or whatever the hell it is. They're not going to be able to get stuff done the way they did before because of, problems amongst the population that's going on in these real populous areas. And it's going to be umpteen times worse than in the 30s. And again, I got to tell you that 1925, forget about the 1930s. Just go from the 1927 back, or whatever, and even 28 back, and you're thinking, wow, we had the greatest war ever. It's over with. There's never going to be a war again like that ever again. We're in an industrial revolution. People are driving cars, they're using telephones. We got radio coming out now. We got, industrialization, standardization of parts. We got the assembly line method. We got machines tilling our soil for vastly increased production of agricultural products. Who the hell would believe that something could go wrong, man? I wouldn't have. I wouldn't have believed it. Not in a million years. But obviously, it doesn't take much. Actually, maybe really the deal is probably the message of Fatima. God punishes mankind for sinning against mankind. Now, do you agree or not agree that there's more sins going on today against God than there ever has been with all the weird shit that's coming up today that's considered normal? I think there's like a load of sins, man. Now, I'm not somebody who's telling you what the hell to do. I don't give a damn. I mean, actually, I give the Bible thumpers a lot of crap. I don't tell people to do anything, man. It's your choice to sin or not. You can't make somebody not be a sinner. You can make somebody freaking do something. That doesn't mean they're still, you can make anybody do anything, really, if you had enough force. But I mean, that doesn't change the way the hell they are, really. So I mean, I look at it like this. I mean, there's far more sinning going on today than there ever's been in the history of mankind, by far. I mean, there isn't nothing close to what's going on today. I mean, I don't even want to make any, examples on here because they'll say, yeah, view these videos not monetize your friendly because you're not politically incorrect or whatever. You know what I'm saying, right? There's far more sins going on today. It's beyond ridiculous. And Mary was talking about people sinning in 1917. If people in 1917 can go to 2016 today and look at what's going on today, they'd be like, whoa. I mean, if they went to 1960, they would be going, whoa. You know what I mean? Not only 1970 or 80, they went to 2016, they'd freak out. So, what do you think's going to happen? You think God's going to punish mankind for its sins? Like Mary said? I think so. Does that mean I'm a doom and gloom? I'm a realist, man. I mean, for crying out loud, man. What do you want? What do you want me to do? Tell you bullshit? Tell you lies? I'm not telling you bullshit about this. You can freaking. You could. You want to keep calling me? People. Certain people want to keep calling me. Doom and gloomer. Nah, not in the least. Damn it. I got a positive attitude. Yeah, I'm gonna get through this. I think a lot of people won't. You know. Um, for children for sale. God, that's pretty desperate to tell you the least. Mother trying to sell her children because she doesn't have any money to even survive and feed them. That's pretty damn desperate, man. But if these people knew what was coming up in 1926 and 1925, a lot of these people wouldn't be in this situation, right? During the age of plenty, and when you had time to react to the situation, if you were not like, oh, I'm worried about it, but you actually did something constructive, like in other words, you got materials together in a hooch someplace out there in the woods in a garden or something with a well and, I don't know, and a bow and arrow to hunt game with or something, you would have been okay. But nobody expected this, and it came upon them really fast, right? So you understand where I'm coming from? I ain't trying to freaking scare people. I'm giving you practical stuff here, man. I hate to say it, but I think this shit's legit. But I don't want people to panic. It's like a battle, man. We got a battle coming up. The enemy's coming up. The enemy is the economic firestorm coming on the United States. All right? That's all it is. All right? I'm not going to be screaming in your ear, hey, the enemy's coming. I want you to have sight picture, sight alignment, target acquisition. And target acquisition being that you got to get your stuff in line for what's coming up. People in the cities are probably going to be screwed because no matter what they do, there's too many people over there that are dependent upon, just-in-time delivery, especially New York City. Oh, my God. I mean, it's an island. Nobody freaking really even thinks of it as an island because there's not too many arteries going in and out of the city. It's like, you don't want to be on that city, man. That city's probably going to suffer the most. I wouldn't be in there for nothing, man. Anyway, and I'm not really too bad off here in sunny Central Florida, one way or the other. If it comes upon me before I get up to the mountains of Tennessee, I'm not bad off over here either, one way or the other. And so I ain't really worried about it. Okay. So anyway, it's this map probably tells you everything. I mean, that's not only the population, that's the GDP. And the GDP that's in those dark areas is actually a small slice of the population that's in those major populated areas. So if there's a lot of unrest going on in those areas, GDP is going to nothing. I mean, it's more than 50% of the GDP. But really, what do you need? What do you need? You got a garden. You got axes and saws to make firewood and build materials with. Hey, you're fine, right? The American Indians did, native peoples. They're not Indians, I know. They did fine for centuries before we all got here. We can just go back to their methods, which is not going to be easy for me, being I was from New York, near New York. I mean, I was born and raised 11 miles from Manhattan. I know some redneck stuff, but I don't know anywhere. I definitely don't know like Sioux or Cherokee or Chippewa or whatever, or Seminole or Comanche. Comanche. Yeah, those are the ones that kick some ass. But you know what I mean, right? I don't know all this stuff myself either. I know some stuff, though. All right? So I'm not telling you something to scare you, man. And I'm not freaking freaked out about it. I noticed this shit's been coming up a long time, man. And and Trump is not going to fix it, man. Make America great. He's going to come in here, make America great, and the whole thing's going to come down, man. And you're going to blame it on him, and they have nothing to do with him, man. It's just shit's already in play, man. We're screwed. We're screwed, Anyway, Remember what the three kids saw at Fatima, Portugal. You know, that's something you can't ignore. I know there's Christians out there that say it was the devil. I talked to some Jewish people about this. They're kind of like, really? I was like, well, I don't know if it has anything to do with Jewish people because I think Jewish people got a different mission in life versus what's supposed to be going on here. And I'm not sure about all this religious stuff. And even if I ignore the message of Fatima, I just look at it from a pragmatic standpoint of how things happen in the past with history and what people thought before something happened. You know, it's like you look at the tech boom. The tech boom, nobody thought that could break. People thought the housing market couldn't break. The Soviet Union wasn't going to break. Yeah, whatever. You know what I mean? The two big Lehman Brothers wouldn't go down. Whatever. Yeah, whatever. Right? Okay. So, but like I said, I don't have this attitude, and how many times I got to deny this, man? People accusing me of being a witch or some shit over here. How many times I got to deny this? I don't have this attitude that, like if you know this shit's coming up, you're not gonna have a tent. You're gonna have a 25 TP modified log cabins that look like teepees or some shit with irrigation and gardens and shit like that. You'll be all set. But these people didn't know. They just came up upon them, and wham, they got screwed. They got screwed. So it's just a warning. But if you don't do anything, and you're one of these people saying, "Yeah, look, it's coming," like that's InfoWars. They're constantly putting you on a fear. I'm not doing that shit, man. I actually get out there and do some shit. You actually see videos of me doing stuff, here and there, tips on shit, right? Even if it's fixing cars, I'm doing something, right? I'm not just doom and glooming out here. And also, health is number one. Because if you feel strong, you can do a lot of stuff. And right now, I can tell you that spooky laser thing I did yesterday, even after I worked out 3 hours, I still feel pretty damn good today, and I'm like happy about that. So I'll tell you that as just in the closing statement. So there you go.